It is, it's actually pretty funny when you look at how human beings intuitively try to protect themselves. Like, think about building a medieval fortress.
Oh, right. Yeah.
You spend years, I mean, literally years, and a fortune reinforcing these massive outer stone walls. You forge this giant impenetrable iron portcullis thing.
Right. The whole 9 yards.
Exactly. You dig a moat that's like 50 feet deep, fill it with whatever terrifying aquatic life you can find. So you've created this absolute stronghold. But then right at the front, you just decide to, leave the wooden drawbridge down.
It's completely open.
Yeah. Why? Because, well, it's just a lot more convenient when you want to make a quick exit to the market.
I mean, it's a fatal flaw in systems thinking, really. You can have the most robust perimeter imaginable, but if you leave a glaring vulnerability right at the primary point of contact with the ground, you haven't built a fortress at all.
No, you really haven't.
You've basically just funneled the siege right into your own courtyard.
And that is the exact image that flashes in my mind when I look at how we gear up for a motorcycle ride. You see riders out there spending, I don't know, $600, $700, $800 on an aerodynamically perfect, wind tunnel tested, safety certified helmet.
No, absolutely. The best gear money can buy for the upper body.
Right. They're wearing these armored leather jackets that look like they could withstand small arms fire.
Yeah.
And then you look down at their feet, and they're wearing standard canvas sneakers.
Or flip-flops in some horrifying cases.
Yes. Or maybe a pair of just worn-out, floppy work boots. I mean, it's the drawbridge. It's wide open. So today, your mission as a listener is specifically focused on securing that foundation. We are doing a deep dive into how to choose motorcycle boots without wasting your money or, far more importantly, compromising your physical safety.
Which is so crucial.
It really is. We've pulled together this massive stack of sources for you today. We've got retail guides, intense European safety standards documentation, and some incredibly raw, brutally honest accounts from real-world rider forums.
It's arguably the most misunderstood area of motorcycle safety. I mean, the statistics we pulled from the source material are quite sobering, honestly.
Yeah, hit us with the numbers.
Well, the data shows that nearly 40% of new riders wear casual or non-certified boots when they ride. 40%.
That is just wild to me. Almost half.
It is. People will meticulously research the rotational impact ratings of their helmets, They will debate the merits of back protectors online for days, but they leave the intricate, highly fragile architecture of their feet completely vulnerable to the physics of the road.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because I want to start with what I think is the most insidious trap riders fall into right out of the gate. Because I don't think that 40% is just people being lazy in canvas sneakers.
No, definitely not.
Right. A massive chunk of those riders think they are actually doing the right thing by lacing up a heavy-duty work boot. The ones like a classic pair of wheat-colored Timberlands or Dickies or a steel-toe boot they use at a construction site.
Oh, the classic work boot fallacy.
Yes. Yeah, they pick them up, they feel heavy, the leather is thick, so the assumption is just, hey, this feels like armor. This is going to protect my foot if I go down.
And that is the defining fallacy of motorcycle footwear right there. It's basically a category error.
How so?
Well, to understand why those boots fail so catastrophically on a motorcycle, we have to look at the vastly different physics involved in a job site accident versus a highway crash.
Right, completely different environments.
Exactly. A work boot is an engineered tool, sure, but it is engineered for a very specific, static environment. Its primary directive is to protect your foot from vertical gravity.
So like things falling on you.
Precisely. If a cinder block is dropped directly onto your toes from some scaffolding, or if you accidentally step down onto an exposed rusty nail, that boot is designed to absorb that specific localized kinetic energy.
Right, it's dealing with things falling down or you stepping on something sharp. But a motorcycle crash isn't just a heavy thing falling on your toe.
Far from it. When you separate from a motorcycle at speed, you are entering a dynamic, multidirectional kinetic event. It is a chaotic transfer of energy.
Chaotic is a good word for it.
It really is. It's not just a single vertical impact. We are talking about high speed sliding across highly abrasive asphalt, which, generates immense thermal energy.
Heat. Lots of heat.
Lots of heat. And we are talking about your foot potentially being trapped and crushed laterally, like from the side, under the dragging weight of a sliding motorcycle.
Yeah.
And Arguably most destructively, we are talking about violent, unpredictable, twisting forces catching the foot while the massive momentum of your body just continues moving forward.
And the work boot just isn't built for that.
A work boot simply lacks the structural architecture to mitigate those specific dynamic forces.
So let's break down the anatomy of exactly why those work boots fail on a bike, starting literally from the ground up. Take the soles.
Okay, the soles.
Yeah, a lot of those heavy-duty work boots feature those classic yellow tag Vibram soles with the deep, chunky treads. Now, on a muddy construction site, that makes perfect sense. But on a motorcycle, the sources point out a huge, hidden issue with that specific rubber compound and tread pattern.
It really comes down to the coefficient of friction and the specific chemical environment of the road. Because those thick, knobby treads on work boots, they're designed with wide channels, right?
Right, to clear out mud.
Exactly, to dig into loose dirt, gravel, or mud and then release it as you walk. But when you are piloting a motorcycle, your primary interaction with the ground happens when you come to a complete stop and put your foot down on flat, compressed, and often highly contaminated surfaces.
Contaminated with what?
Well, think about the pavement at a busy gas station or an intersection right after a light rain.
No, it was basically an oil slick.
It is exactly an oil slick. Cars constantly drip oil, coolant, and diluted fuel at those specific stopping points. The rubber compound used in a standard work boot is often formulated for durability against sharp rocks, not for chemical resistance to petroleum products.
I see.
So when you place that hard, knobby sole down onto an oily patch of asphalt, the contact patch, the actual amount of rubber touching the ground is minimal because of those deep treads.
So it just glides right over it.
The sole hydroplanes on the oil. You pull up to a pump, plant your foot. The sole instantly loses traction, and suddenly a 400-pound machine is falling over on top of your leg.
And dropping your bike at a gas station isn't just, embarrassing in front of the guy pumping gas in his minivan. It's a remarkably common way to snap an ankle.
Very common.
You're trapped under a hot exhaust pipe all because your tough-looking boot couldn't find grip on a smooth surface. But let's move up from the sole to the part of the work boot that people probably trust the most, which is the steel toe.
Oh boy, the steel toe.
This completely blew my mind in the research. You think a steel cap over your toes is the ultimate armor. But the forum accounts we reviewed highlighted how a steel toe can actually become a massive, gruesome liability in a crash.
It's a very counterintuitive reality, but it makes perfect sense when you actually analyze the friction mechanics of a slide.
Walk us through that.
Imagine you lose traction in a corner and go down at 50 miles per hour. As you slide down the highway, the asphalt acts exactly like a giant high-speed belt sander.
Right.
The leather or synthetic material covering that steel toe is going to abrade and wear away in a fraction of a second, exposing the raw metal underneath.
And steel sliding on asphalt, that doesn't just glide smoothly, does it?
No, it certainly doesn't. Once that exposed steel cap makes contact with the road surface, its behavior is highly unpredictable. Depending on the angle and the roughness of the asphalt, the steel doesn't just slide.
What does it do?
It can violently catch, gouge, or grip the road surface.
So if the toe catches on a slight lip in the pavement, while the rest of your body, like your legs, your torso, your head, is still traveling at 50 miles an hour.
It creates a catastrophic torsional fulcrum point. Instead of your foot gliding safely over the surface and dissipating energy through friction, your foot is suddenly anchored to the ground.
Oh, man.
Your body's momentum continues, and the resulting twist happens much faster than your muscles can possibly react. This is how riders sustain devastating spiral fractures, where the rotational force literally twists the tibia and fibula until they snap up the entire length of the leg.
That is horrific.
It gets worse, actually.
Yeah.
The biomechanics get worse.
How could it get worse?
In a severe frontal impact, say your foot hits a curb or the bumper of a car during a crash, a standard work boot steel toe is not designed to support the structural integrity of the entire shoe housing against horizontal crush forces.
Wait, horizontal, like pushing straight back into the foot.
Exactly. The rear edge of that steel cap, the part sitting right over your metatarsals, can actually fold backward upon impact. Yes, the very piece of metal meant to protect your toes acts like a guillotine, severely injuring or even amputating them under extreme force.
Okay, listener, I know that is an incredibly grim image, I really do, but we have to look these realities in the eye so you understand exactly what you're dealing with when you make gear choices.
Absolutely necessary.
And The failure points of work boots continue when we look at how they actually stay attached to your body. Laces.
Laces.
We've all seen people riding down the highway with standard laced-up boots just flapping in the wind.
Laces are a multifaceted hazard on a motorcycle. First, you have the immediate mechanical risk. The operational area of a motorcycle near your feet is just full of moving parts.
So many snag points.
Right. A loose loop or a trailing lace can easily catch on your foot pegs when you try to put your foot down at a stop. Worse, it can wrap around your shift lever or get drawn into an exposed chain guard or front sprocket.
I've actually had this happen. I had a shoelace loop catch on the little peg of my kickstand while I was pulling up to a red light.
Well,
Yeah, I went to put my left foot down, realized it was literally tethered to the bike, and just slowly tipped over in slow motion. It was humiliating. But the real danger, our sources pointed out, isn't at a stoplight. It's during the crash itself.
yes. In a slide, an accident creates tremendous rotational, pulling, and snagging forces. A standard laced boot, particularly a low-top ankle boot, simply does not possess the retention strength required to stay on a human foot under those dynamic loads.
It just pulls right off.
The forces involved in a crash can, and frequently do, literally strip the boot right off the foot upon the initial impact or during the subsequent tumble.
There was a really stark warning in one of the rider forums we analyzed. A first responder, an EMT who rides, was talking about the specific kinds of foot injuries they see when riders wear casual boots. They said, and listener, if you have a strong stomach, you can look this up later, but I highly advise against doing it while eating. They told people to go image search the medical term degloved foot.
It is a clinical term that describes exactly what it sounds like, and the medical reality of it is profoundly difficult to treat.
It's bad.
Degloving occurs when a large section of skin and the underlying subcutaneous tissue are violently sheared or torn away from the underlying fascia, muscle, and bone. It's like pulling a glove off a hand, but the glove is your skin.
Because once that laced boot flies off during the initial impact, your barefoot, wrapped in maybe a thin cotton sock if you're lucky, is completely exposed to the friction of the road at highway speeds.
Exactly. And the human foot is a remarkably complex and fragile piece of engineering. You have 26 bones, 33 joints, and over 100 muscles, tendons, and ligaments down there.
It's packed with delicate stuff.
It is. Furthermore, the skin on the top of the foot and around the ankle is very thin, with very little subcutaneous fat or muscle to act as a buffer. And crucially, the extremities have relatively low vascularity, meaning lower blood flow compared to your core.
So it doesn't heal well.
Precisely. When you suffer a severe friction injury or complex fracture in the foot, the lack of robust blood flow means the healing process is agonizingly slow, highly prone to infection, and often results in permanent loss of mobility.
That completely reframes why motorcycle-specific boots are built the way they are. I mean, they aren't using cotton laces.
No, purpose-built motorcycle boots utilize entirely different retention systems. They use heavy-duty micrometric ratchets, reinforced Velcro overlays, or heavy-gauge internal zippers that are often shielded by a leather flap.
Stuff that actually locks it down.
These mechanisms are specifically engineered to lock the heel down into the heel cup and keep the boot firmly attached to your leg, regardless of the pulling forces applied during a crash. Work boots rely on friction and thin nylon strings that easily stretch, snap, or untie under pressure.
To really drive the reality of these physical forces home, there was this anecdote in the source material from a rider who had a classic low-side crash.
A very common scenario.
Right. For the uninitiated, a low side is when the tires lose grip, usually in a corner, the bike washes out from under you, and you drop onto the pavement, often with your leg pinned under the sliding motorcycle.
You're just sliding along with it.
Yeah. This rider was doing about 70 kilometers per hour, which is roughly 45 miles an hour. He was wearing proper, moto-specific, full-grain leather boots. After the crash, he posted pictures of his boots. There were gouges in the leather over 1 millimeter deep just from the friction.
Wow.
He noted that a standard work boot, let alone a pair of canvas sneakers, would have completely disintegrated under that sustained friction. His foot would have been ground down to the bone. Instead, he just stood up and walked away.
That 1 millimeter gouge in high-grade leather represents a staggering amount of kinetic energy that was safely converted into thermal energy, heat, and friction by the boot, rather than by the rider's skin and bone.
It's doing its job.
It's a perfect illustration of task-specific engineering. The dense collagen fibers of the leather, the Kevlar stitching, the structural reinforcements, they all performed their specific duty in a high-speed slide.
It's like wearing a hard hat to a professional boxing match. Sure, a hard hat is incredibly tough. You can drop a brick on it. But if Mike Tyson throws a left hook at your jaw, that hard hat isn't going to do a damn thing for you because it's protecting against entirely the wrong kind of hit.
That analogy perfectly captures the mechanical mismatch. The impact vectors, the energy dispersion requirements, and the abrasion profiles are just completely different. A work boot is simply the wrong tool for the job.
But that leads to a really important question. If we know work boots are engineered for the wrong environment, how do we, as consumers, know that a motorcycle boot is actually engineered for the right one?
A very fair question.
Because I can walk into a big box store right now, pick up a boot that looks like it belongs on a racetrack, and the box might say tactical, extreme protection, or heavy duty. Marketing departments can stamp anything on a box.
They can, and they frequently do. Which is exactly why the European safety regulators developed an objective, scientifically rigorous standard to cut through all that marketing noise. This brings us to the ultimate truth serum for motorcycle gear. EN 13634.
EN 13634.
Okay, let's decode this because this is where you, the listener, go from guessing to knowing. What exactly is this?
EN stands for European norm. EN 13634 is the internationally recognized safety standard specifically developed for motorcycle footwear. It is a subset of the broader CE Certification Conformité Européenne, which regulates health, safety, and environmental protection standards for products sold within the European Economic Area.
But we use it everywhere, right?
Yes, because the European motorcycle market is so massive, EN 13634 has effectively become the global benchmark. When a boot passes these rigorous laboratory tests, it earns that CE certification.
And this isn't just a pass-fail generic stamp of approval like, yep, it's a boot. It's
Right.
a highly detailed code that tells you exactly how the boot performed in very specific, violent laboratory settings.
Very specific. When you pull back the Velcro strap or look inside the tongue of a certified boot, you'll see a tag. It has a little icon of a motorcyclist, the text EN 13634, the year the standard was updated, like 2017, and then beneath that, a sequence of 4 numbers.
Those 4 numbers are your Rosetta Stone. They will always be either a 1 or a 2.
What's the difference?
Level 1 represents a basic minimum passing grade for protective footwear. Level 2 indicates a significantly superior level of protection. If you know how to read these 4 numbers, it completely revolutionizes how you evaluate and purchase gear.
Let's break down that secret tag code for our listener, number by number. The first number in the sequence, what does it tell us?
The first number is the most straightforward, honestly. It simply denotes the physical height of the boot's protective coverage.
Okay.
A level 1 rating here indicates a short boot, typically ankle length, that provides protection just above the malleolus or the ankle bone. A level 2 rating means it is a tall boot that extends significantly up the shin.
Which obviously matters, right? Because your shin bone is right there against the engine cases.
Precisely. The tibia is highly exposed on a motorcycle. It is situated right at the front of the leg with virtually no muscle or fat covering the anterior crest to absorb impact. Furthermore, taller boots inherently provide more structural leverage to support the ankle joint, which we will discuss later. So a level 2 in height denotes a much greater protective coverage area.
Simple enough. But the second number is where the real laboratory torture testing begins. This second digit is for abrasion resistance. This answers the most primal fear of falling off a bike. How well is this boot going to save my skin if I'm sliding down the highway at highway speeds?
To determine this, the testing standard employs a machine often referred to in testing circles as the Cambridge Impact Abrasion Tester, though the exact methodology has evolved a bit. The concept is brutal, but effective.
How does it work?
First, they don't just test the whole boot uniformly. The boot is conceptually divided into 2 distinct zones. Area A includes the sole, the front of the boot, and the back areas where the manufacturer might have used softer stretch panels or accordion leather to allow for walking comfort and shifting articulation.
Got it, the flexi bits.
Right. Then Area B comprises the rest of the boot, the primary protective chassis covering the sides, the heel, and the ankle.
So they acknowledge that a boot needs to flex, but they demand to know how strong those flex points are.
Exactly. In the lab, 3 circular samples of material are physically cut from both Area A and Area B of the boot. These samples are then placed into a machine and pressed against a moving, highly abrasive belt, simulating the exact friction profile of sliding on asphalt.
Wait, they literally hold pieces of the boot against an industrial belt sander.
That is exactly what it is, and the metric they are recording is time. They measure precisely how many seconds it takes for the abrasive belt to wear a hole completely through the material.
Wow.
To achieve a basic level 1 rating, The softer materials in Area A must withstand the abrasion for at least 1.5 seconds, and the primary chassis in Area B must last for 5 seconds.
I mean, that doesn't sound very long.
What?
1.5.
It sounds brief until you factor in the speed of the slide. But consider the requirements for the superior Level 2 rating. To achieve a Level 2 in abrasion, the materials in Area A must hold up for at least 2.5 seconds, and Area B must survive for a staggering minimum of 12 seconds of continuous abrasion before a hole appears.
12 seconds of continuous sliding on a belt sander. Listener, try to visualize that. Think about how long 12 seconds is in the middle of a violent crash. 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, it feels like an absolute eternity.
It really does.
If you are sliding across pavement for 12 solid seconds without stopping, you have likely traveled hundreds and hundreds of feet down the highway. The amount of heat generated by that friction is intense. The fact that a Level 2 material won't even develop a hole in that time is incredible engineering.
It is a phenomenal benchmark for abrasion resistance. And it highlights why synthetic fashion materials melt instantly, while thick leather or advanced engineered fabrics survive.
Right.
But sliding is only one part of the crash equation. You aren't just sliding on an empty, flat surface. You are sliding into things. Which brings us to the third number on that CE tag, impact cut resistance.
This tests what happens if your boot strikes a sharp object, right? Like a jagged piece of a guardrail, a shattered piece of carbon fiber from the fairings, or a broken metal foot peg.
Correct. The testing protocol for impact cut resistance is intensely specific. They utilize a specialized rig that holds a steel blade. This blade is attached to a heavy mounting block to ensure consistent mass. The blade is then dropped from a specific height directly onto the boot material.
I read the documentation on this. It's not a gentle tap.
Far from it. They measure the velocity of the blade at the moment of impact and then measure the depth of penetration through the material.
So how fast is it falling?
For the flexible zones, Area A, the blade is dropped to achieve an impact speed of 2 meters per second. For the critical protective chassis in Area B, the blade is dropped at a faster 2.8 meters per second.
Let me stop you there. 2.8 meters per second. Why that specific speed? It sounds so random and arbitrary.
It isn't arbitrary at all, actually. European safety engineers calculated that speed to simulate the kinetic energy of a rider tumbling and striking a relatively sharp, rigid object at an oblique angle during a slide. It's a localized, high-energy impact focused on a very narrow point, the edge of the blade.
That makes sense.
To pass a Level 1 rating, the blade can't penetrate more than 25 millimeters. But to earn that superior Level 2 rating in Area B, the blade dropping at nearly 3 meters per second cannot penetrate the material by more than 15 millimeters.
15 millimeters. That is barely over half an inch. So even with a blade slamming down at high speed, the structural integrity of the boot stops it almost immediately. In the real world, that's the difference between walking away with a bruised leg and suffering a severed tendon or losing a toe.
It is the difference between a superficial wound and catastrophic structural damage to the foot, yes. Finally, we arrive at the fourth and final number on the primary CE tag, which stands for transverse rigidity. In lay terms, this is the crush test.
And this feels vital, because in a crash, your foot doesn't just slide or hit things. It frequently ends up trapped. It gets sandwiched between the rigid, unyielding road surface and the sliding weight of the motorcycle itself.
Precisely. To test transverse rigidity, the standard focuses on the widest part of the boot, right across the metatarsals. They place the boot flat between two heavy steel plates. A hydraulic press then forces those plates together, compressing the boot at a steady, controlled rate of 30 millimeters per minute.
They are slowly squashing the boot in a hydraulic press.
Yes, and sensors record exactly how much mechanical force the sole and the chassis of the boot can withstand before they fail and compress inward, which would theoretically crush the bones of the foot.
Let me jump in with the raw data on this, because translating these numbers makes it very real. To get a basic Level 1 pass in the crush test, the boot has to withstand roughly 1 to 1.4 kilonewtons of force before compressing.
Right.
That translates to about 140 kilograms of crush protection. For a Level 2 pass, the boot has to withstand over 1.5 kilonewtons, which is roughly 150 kilograms or more.
Which is substantial.
Now, listener, I want you to think about this. 150 kilograms of crush force sounds incredibly strong. It's roughly 330 pounds. But think about the machine you are riding. A Harley-Davidson Road Glide or a fully loaded BMW R1250 GS touring bike can weigh 600, 700, maybe even 800 pounds.
Oh, easily.
That's upwards of 350 kilograms. If that bike falls flat on your foot, 150 kilograms of protection doesn't seem like enough.
That is an excellent and crucial observation, and it highlights a fundamental reality about all safety gear that riders must accept. That level 2 rating does not mean your foot is encased in an impenetrable diamond shell. The CE rating is not a magical invincibility shield.
That's not going to make you Superman.
No.
So,
What it provides is a critical, measurable baseline of harm reduction.
harm reduction, meaning it's taking the edge off the hit.
Exactly. Inside a certified boot, there is usually a stiff shank, often made of steel or highly rigid nylon embedded in the sole, surrounded by structurally reinforced materials. When the bike falls on your foot, that architecture is absorbing, distributing, and resisting that initial 150 kilograms of force across the entire structure of the boot, rather than letting it focus entirely on your fragile metatarsals.
Oh, I get it. So if a 300-kilogram bike falls on your foot, the boot is mitigating half of that total energy before it ever reaches your bones.
Yes. And that mitigation can easily be the difference between a severe, painful sprain and a catastrophic, career-ending, crushing injury where the complex bones of the foot are reduced to gravel. It's about buying you a margin of safety when physics turns against you.
It's giving your foot a fighting chance.
What is truly empowering about the system is that these 4 numbers give the rider complete, objective transparency. When you are standing in a gear shop and you pull back the tongue of a boot and see 2222, you know exactly what you're holding.
You're not guessing anymore.
Right. You are no longer at the mercy of marketing buzzwords like tactical, combat ready, or heavy duty. You aren't trusting a slick sales pitch. You are trusting physics and rigorous laboratory data. You know objectively how that material behaves under immense mechanical stress.
But the reality of riding is that we aren't crashing 99.9% of the time. We have to actually live with these boots, walk in them, and ride through varying weather conditions. And the CE testing standard accounts for that too.
It does.
Below those 4 numbers on the tag, there is often an alphabet soup of optional tests the manufacturers can opt into. And these letters reveal the truth about a boot's daily livability. Let's dive into those optional ratings.
Manufacturers who want to distinguish their premium products can submit their boots for these supplementary tests to prove specific comfort, utility, and targeted safety features. For example, you might see the letters IPA or IPS.
What do those stand for?
Impact protection for the ankle or shin. This indicates that the specific armored inserts placed over the ankle bone or the shin were tested independently to absorb up to 10 joules of impact force without transferring dangerous energy levels to the joint.
Okay, that's good to know. You might also see FO on the tag.
FO stands for fuel and oil resistant. The sole material is immersed in chemicals to ensure it does not swell, degrade, or lose structural integrity when exposed to petroleum. This directly addresses the exact vulnerability we discussed earlier regarding standard work boots deteriorating at gas stations.
And speaking of gas stations, there are specific slip resistance tests to prevent that embarrassing and dangerous drop, right? If I look at the tag, I might see SRA, SRB, or SRC. What's the difference?
Slip resistance is tested quite rigorously to simulate the worst-case scenarios a rider might face when putting a foot down. If you see SRA on the tag, it means the boot passed a slip test on a ceramic tile surface that was covered in a diluted soap solution.
Basically a wet, soapy bathroom floor.
Exactly. It's testing for hydroplaning. SRB is a different challenge. It means the boot passed on a smooth, flat steel floor coated with glycerol, which is a highly viscous, incredibly slick liquid. It tests how the rubber compound grips without any surface texture to aid it.
And SRC.
If the tag proudly displays SRC, it means the sole design and rubber compound successfully passed both of those extreme tests.
So if you see SRC, you know that sole is engineered to grip almost anything. But I want to spend some serious time on another optional rating you'll see on the tag, WR, the waterproof rating.
A very popular one.
Because the word waterproof is probably the most abused word in outdoor gear marketing. A cheap fashion boot will claim it's waterproof because it has a shiny finish. But what does waterproof actually mean in the context of CE testing? Because it's not just the technician spraying a boot with a garden hose for 5 minutes.
Far from it. The EN 13634 water resistance tests are exhaustively grueling. There are 2 accepted methodologies a boot can undergo to earn the WR stamp, and both are severe.
Walk us through the first one.
The first method utilizes a complex mechanical device. The boot is clamped into a machine that physically flexes the toe box, precisely simulating the mechanical action increasing of a human foot walking. It performs this flexing motion 4,600 times.
Over 4,000 steps.
Yes. And it performs this entire process while the boot is submerged in water up to just below the top edge. It is actively forcing water against the seams and the membrane under dynamic pressure.
The dynamic pressure is the key there, right? Because water sitting statically against leather is one thing, but when you bend the boot, you are opening the pores of the material and forcing the water in.
Precisely. The alternative method is even more practical and human-centric. A human tester puts the boots on and literally walks a distance of 1 kilometer, that's 100 lengths of a 10-meter track, through a trough of shallow water.
So to pass either of these tests, what's the metric? Can the inside get a little damp?
The standard is incredibly strict. After the 4,600 mechanical flexes, or the 1-kilometer walk in water, the interior of the boot is examined. Any resulting dampness inside the boot can be no larger than 3 square centimeters total.
3 square centimeters, that's basically the size of a postage stamp.
It's virtually nothing.
So consider the alternative. If I see waterproof on a cheap, non-CE rated boot, it might just mean they sprayed the outside with a topical chemical like Scotchgard at the factory. It'll repel a light drizzle while you walk to your car, maybe. But if I see WR on an EN 13634 tag, I know someone virtually, or literally, walked a kilometer through a river and the inside stayed completely dry.
That is the profound difference between a hollow marketing claim and a certified engineering standard. Achieving this level of waterproofing while maintaining any degree of flexibility is usually accomplished using advanced microscopic membrane technologies, the most famous being Gore-Tex, or alternatives like Sympatex.
Let's talk about how those membranes actually work, because it feels like magic. How can a boot keep a puddle out but let my foot sweat?
It's fascinating material science, really. Take Gore-Tex, which is based on expanded polytetrafluoroethylene, or EPTFE. In the late 1960s, Bob Gore discovered that if you rapidly stretch PTFE under specific thermal conditions, it creates a microporous structure.
Microporous, meaning lots of tiny holes.
Right. These membranes contain billions of microscopic pores per square inch. The genius of the engineering is in the size of the pore. A single pore is roughly 20,000 times smaller than a liquid water droplet.
Wow.
Therefore, rain or puddle water physically cannot pass through the barrier.
The door is literally too small for the water to enter.
Exactly. However, that same pore is about 700 times larger than a single molecule of water vapor. When your foot heats up and sweats, that moisture turns into vapor. Driven by the thermodynamic principles of heat and pressure moving toward cooler, lower pressure areas outside the boot, your sweat vapor can easily pass through those pores and escape.
So it's a one-way valve dictated by molecular size.
Yes.
Which is absolutely essential for riding. And speaking of sweat, there's a companion rating to WR on the tag, which is WA.
Yes. WAD stands for water absorption and desorption of the inner lining. This tests the hydrophilic and hydrophobic properties of the interior fabrics.
What does that mean practically?
It measures how much moisture the inside of the boot holds onto and, crucially, how quickly it releases it when the boot is taken off.
Oh, I see. So if you are doing a multi-day motorcycle tour, riding 8 hours a day, day after day, this is crucial for foot hygiene.
It is a matter of health and comfort. A boot lining that holds onto sweat and refuses to dry overnight will quickly become a breeding ground for bacteria.
Nasty.
Very. This leads to awful odors, certainly, but more importantly, it can cause severe fungal infections like athlete's foot. Furthermore, from a thermal perspective, water conducts heat away from the body roughly 25 times faster than air.
That's a huge difference.
If your boot lining is soaked with sweat and the temperature drops as you ride into the mountains, your feet will become dangerously cold, severely impairing your ability to smoothly operate the brake and shifter. The WAD rating ensures the boot manages moisture efficiently.
Okay, so we've established that the EN 13634 tag tells you a massive amount about abrasion, crushing, slipping, and water management. But as comprehensive and scientific as the CE tag is, our expert sources from the rider forums reveal a glaring, fundamental blind spot in the testing protocol that every single rider needs to know about.
It is a very important blind spot.
Because even a premium boot with a perfect 2222 rating has a critical vulnerability.
It does. And this is perhaps the most critical piece of nuanced information for any rider evaluating protective gear. The CE certification is excellent for what it tests, but it has significant gaps, most notably regarding its evaluation of ankle torsion or twisting and rotational forces.
Let's clearly define the difference between what the CE lab tests for and what actually happens during the chaotic tumbling of a real crash.
Well, we discussed impact and crush injuries earlier. The CE testing protocol does an excellent job simulating a direct, linear strike like dropping a blade, or a hydraulic press simulating a bike falling flat onto the side of your foot. Those prominent, often brightly colored plastic or foam protectors situated over your malleolus, your ankle bone, are tested for direct impact. But the EN 13634 standard does not adequately test whether the overall architecture of the boot prevents your ankle from rolling laterally or snapping in a rotational twisting motion.
Because the lab tests are very specific, isolated, linear scenarios. They put a piece of the boot in a machine and hit it.
Yeah.
But real-world crashes are messy.
Exactly. The methodology focuses on linear impact vectors. But imagine a common real-world crash scenario. You go down, you are sliding on your back, and your foot gets temporarily pinned under a sliding motorcycle.
Or what if you catch something on the road?
Yes, or the toe of your boot catches the lip of a pothole or the edge of the grass shoulder while you were sliding. Your foot abruptly stops moving, but the mass of your body keeps rotating forward and sideways.
The boot stops, you keep going.
That physical reality creates immense torsional stress on the intricate ligaments and bones of the ankle joint. The CE standard guarantees the boot won't crush, and it guarantees the leather won't wear through, but it doesn't guarantee the boot won't simply twist right along with your snapping ankle.
The sources provided a perfect, albeit painful anecdote for this.
Yeah.
There was a detailed account from an off-road rider who was wearing Alpinistar's Tech 7 boots.
Right.
Now, for those who don't follow the off-road gear market, Tech 7s are highly protective, premium motocross boots. They are beefy, serious pieces of equipment.
Very serious gear.
But this rider was navigating a turn, lost his balance slightly, and he caught his toe on a deep, hardened dirt rut.
That is a classic textbook torsional trap.
Right. His toe caught the immovable rut, his body's momentum kept him moving forward and rotating over the bike, and his ankle was severely twisted. Even wearing these heavy-duty, highly rated boots, he ended up with a broken fibula and severely torn syndesmotic ligaments.
Which perfectly illustrates the physical limits of even premium gear against extreme rotational physics. The Tech 7 boot did exactly what it was certified to do. It prevented his foot from being crushed by the bike, and it stopped any abrasion from the dirt and rocks.
But the twist still got him.
Exactly, because without a completely rigid external frame, it couldn't fully halt the twisting motion of his leg bones inside the boot.
But this raises an incredibly important question for you, the listener. If the official European safety standard doesn't guarantee protection against twisting, and even premium thick boots has limits, how do we actually protect ourselves from these career-ending torsional injuries? Do we just accept the risk?
You don't just accept the risk, but you have to look beyond the CE tag. The tag is your baseline for abrasion and crush resistance. But to combat torsion, you have to look at the physical macroarchitecture of the boot.
What should we be looking for?
You need to seek out boots that feature mechanical structures built explicitly into their design. Specifically, external hinge systems, rigid torsion control plates, and the overall biomechanical stiffness of the chassis.
It's the physical design that dictates torsional protection. I mean, if a boot is soft enough that you can take it out of the box and easily fold the toe toward the heel with your bare hands, it is not going to stop the immense leverage of your body weight from folding your ankle in half during a crash.
Not at all.
You need a boot that functions like an exoskeleton.
Exoskeleton is the perfect term. An external hinge system on a premium sport boot is a mechanical marvel. It is designed to allow smooth movement in the sagittal plane, meaning it lets your foot move up and down so you can operate the shifter and the rear brake comfortably.
Right, you still have to ride the bike.
Right. But the hinge physically locks and blocks movement in the frontal and coronal planes. It acts as a mechanical stop, preventing the ankle from rolling sideways or hyperextending beyond its natural anatomical limits.
And that brings us to a crucial pivot point in our deep dive today. Picking the right category of boot. Because the physical design and the presence of these hinges dictates the level of protection. Matching the style of the boot to the specific type of riding you do is your next vital decision. If you buy the wrong style for your needs, you've wasted your money and left yourself exposed.
Correct. The motorcycle gear market is broadly divided into 4 main architectural styles, each engineered with a fundamentally different balance of protection, comfort, and stiffness. Let's start by examining cruiser boots.
Cruiser boots. This is the classic heritage leather look, usually 8 to 10 inches tall, flat heel, very traditional aesthetic. Think of the Harley-Davidson Darnell boot or classic heavy-duty engineer boots with the buckles.
These are explicitly built for V-twins, relaxed, feet-forward riding positions, and matching a specific aesthetic. They prioritize thick, heavy, abrasion-resistant, full-grain leather, Architecturally, they often feature a Goodyear welt construction.
Let's explain a Goodyear welt quickly, because it's a term thrown around in high-end footwear all the time.
It is a traditional and highly durable method of shoemaking. Instead of just gluing the sole to the upper leather, a strip of leather, the welt is stitched to the upper and to a canvas rib attached to the insole. Then, the outer sole is stitched directly to that welt.
Okay, so it's a mechanical bond.
Yes. A cork filling is usually placed in the cavity, which eventually molds to your footprint. This mechanical stitching makes the boot incredibly durable and, crucially, allows it to be infinitely resoled by a cobbler.
So they last forever. And the flat heel allows for easy movement on the large floorboards found on cruisers. They offer great impact and crush protection because of the thick leather and sturdy sole, but architecturally they're usually just thick leather.
Meaning they don't have external plastic hinges or rigid mechanical frames, meaning their torsional protection against twisting is only moderate.
Right. Next we move to touring boots. These are the marathon runners of the motorcycle boot world.
Built for long, grueling days in the saddle.
If you are crossing the country or riding through varying climates over thousands of miles, this is what you want. Models like the Alpinestars Andes V2 or CD Adventure boots.
Touring boots prioritize long-term comfort and weather protection over aggressive styling or track-level rigidity. They will almost universally feature a robust, waterproof, breathable membrane like the Gore-Tex we discussed.
Essential for touring.
They often utilize advanced, dual compound soles designed specifically to dampen the high-frequency engine vibrations that can cause numbness in the feet over an 8-hour riding day. They offer good internal ankle reinforcement, but again, because they're designed to be relatively comfortable to walk around at gas stations or scenic stops, they generally lack those highly rigid external anti-twist mechanical frames.
Which brings us to the third category, sport and racing boots. If you listened to our breakdown of torsional injuries and decided you want maximum protection for your ankles, this is where you go.
Absolutely. This category is where you find the uncompromising anti-twist technology. Boots like the Dainese Torque 3 or the Alpinestars SuperTech R, these boots are typically shin-high.
Lots of protection up the leg.
Yes. They feature hard plastic, polyurethane, or magnesium sliders on the toes and heels designed to promote sliding and prevent catching. But most importantly, they feature those external torsion control plates and mechanical hinges we detailed. This exoskeleton physically restricts the ankle from hyperextending or rolling laterally.
But the undeniable trade-off for all that biomechanical protection is daily comfort, right? They are incredibly stiff by design. Walking into a roadside coffee shop in full squeaking race boots makes you look and walk like a robotic stormtrooper.
It does. The biomechanical restrictions that save your ankle from snapping into a 100-mile-per-hour slide across a racetrack make the simple act of walking to a cash register quite awkward. It is a calculated compromise.
It's all trade-offs. Finally, we have the newest and most rapidly growing category, casual riding shoes.
These are very popular right now.
These are the ones that look exactly like high-top sneakers or stylish street shoes. Brands like TCX make the Street 3, which just looks like a cool vintage skate shoe. You can wear them to an office or a restaurant and no one knows you rode a motorcycle.
Aesthetically, yes, they look like normal shoes. But internally, they hide specialized technology. They often use non-Newtonian materials for armor, such as D3O over the ankle bones.
D3O is fascinating stuff. It's soft and flexible when you touch it, but it hardens instantly upon impact, right?
Exactly. It is a shear thickening fluid, often suspended in a polyurethane matrix. Under normal, slow movements, like walking, the molecules flow freely past one another, making the pads soft and pliable.
So it's comfy.
Right. But under the sudden, high shear stress of an impact, the molecules instantly lock together, forming a rigid lattice that absorbs and disperses the kinetic energy. Once the energy passes, it returns to its soft state.
That's brilliant for comfort. And they have reinforced, crush-resistant soles. They are excellent for urban commuting or running errands across town. However, because they are low-top, terminating right at or slightly above the ankle and highly flexible by design, their torsional protection is minimal, and they leave the shin bone completely exposed.
They are great for low-speed city environments, but a very poor choice for high-speed highway touring or canyon carving.
It is entirely about matching the specific tool to the specific job. But let's transition to the economics of this decision. The whole point of our mission today is to ensure you do not waste your hard-earned money. When you look at the motorcycle boot market, there is a massive price chasm between boots made of synthetic materials and those made of full-grain leather.
Oh, a huge difference in price.
You might see a synthetic touring boot for $90, and a seemingly similar leather one for $200. The immediate consumer instinct is to just save the 110 bucks.
Naturally.
I mean, $110 buys a lot of gas, but our sources argue that this is a trap.
It is a textbook false economy. If we break down the cost per year math and the material science, the more expensive leather boot is almost always cheaper in the long run.
Okay, lay that out for us.
A $90 synthetic boot is essentially constructed from advanced petrochemical plastics and polyurethane. Over time, under the constant mechanical stress of flexing your foot and shifting gears, and the environmental stress of exposure to UV sunlight, extreme heat from the engine, and rain,
They wear out.
those synthetic polymers will begin to degrade. They dry out, they crack, and they lose their structural integrity. You might realistically get 2, perhaps 3 seasons out of a cheap synthetic boot before the seams fail or the flex points crack open.
And once a synthetic boot cracks, it's done. You have to throw it in the trash and buy another $90 pair. So over 10 years, you've spent $300 to $400 on cheap boots.
Exactly. Conversely, a $200 full-grain leather boot is a durable investment. Leather, being a natural hide consisting of densely interwoven collagen fibers, is incredibly resilient. With basic care and occasional conditioning, it won't crack.
And you mentioned the resoling earlier.
Right, as we discussed with the Goodyear Welt, many high-quality leather boots use stitched soles rather than the glued soles found on cheap synthetics. When the rubber sole inevitably wears flat after thousands of miles, you don't throw the boot away. A local cobbler can stitch on a brand new Vibram sole for a fraction of the cost of a new boot. A well-maintained leather boot can easily last 5 to 10 years.
Plus, leather does something that plastic and synthetic materials can never, ever do. It organically molds to the unique shape of your foot.
The fit improves over time.
Right. A synthetic boot will stubbornly maintain its original factory-molded rigid shape forever. If a synthetic boot pinches your pinky toe on day 1, I promise you it will still be pinching your pinky toe in year 2. Leather, however, softens with body heat and custom shapes to your exact anatomy.
Which is vital for long-term comfort.
And speaking of anatomy, let's tackle fit. Because finding the right fit is where a lot of riders waste money by buying expensive boots they end up hating and leaving in the closet. Let's start with the most common complaint: wide feet.
This is a ubiquitous problem in the motorcycle gear industry. The vast majority of motorcycle boots, particularly those designed by European brands, are built on a standard D-width last.
What exactly is a last?
A last is the solid, three-dimensional mechanical mold, traditionally made of carved wood, now often high-density plastic, around which a shoemaker forms the boot. It represents the anatomical volume and shape of the foot.
Okay.
European lasts tend to be notoriously narrow. If a rider has a wide foot, they will often try on their standard size, find it painfully tight across the metatarsals, and decide to simply buy a size or 2 larger to get more width.
Which seems logical, right?
Yeah.
If it's too tight, buy a bigger shoe. Let me stop you there because the forums scream about why this is a terrible idea. Sizing up for width completely ruins the length.
It misaligns every single engineered protective element of the boot. If you buy a size 12 because your size 10 foot is too wide, your heel will slip up and down with every step, causing severe blisters.
The armor won't line up either.
Precisely. The armor pocket designed to cover your malleolus will sit an inch too far forward, leaving your actual ankle bone unprotected. And the reinforced shifter pad on the toe of the boot will be nowhere near your actual toes, making gear changes clumsy and imprecise.
So what's the solution?
If you have wide feet, you must seek out brands that specifically manufacture their boots using wider lasts. You need to look for E or wide designations in the sizing. Brands with a heritage in American workwear or Western boots, such as Thorogood or Carolina, often offer generous E sizing in their motorcycle-specific lines.
That makes sense.
Furthermore, square-toe cruiser boots naturally offer a significantly larger volume in the toe box compared to the sleek, pointed toe of a racing boot. The rule is simple: never compromise on length just to achieve width.
And what about the other major fit issue we see constantly? Short riders or newer riders trying to confidently reach the ground. I've seen riders on tall adventure bikes struggling to flat-foot their bikes at stoplights.
It's very nerve-wracking.
They're on their extreme tiptoes, which is incredibly dangerous if they happen to put their foot down on a patch of gravel or uneven pavement. The market solution to this is often heavily marketed elevator boots, or boots with massive, thick soles.
Right, to add height.
These have internal lists built into the heel to give you an extra 2 or 3 inches of height. I'll admit, it sounds like a perfect solution. You get taller without lowering the suspension of the bike.
It sounds like a perfect solution until you evaluate the biomechanics of operating the motorcycle controls. An elevator boot fundamentally changes how your foot interfaces with the bike. By significantly elevating the heel internally, the boot drastically alters the resting angle of your ankle when your foot is on the peg.
Because your heel is artificially jacked up, your toes are pointing down more than usual.
Precisely. You are held in a state of constant plantar flexion. When you need to shift gears, particularly upshifting, it requires you to flex your foot upward dorsiflexion, much further than normal just to hook the toe of the boot under the shift lever.
That sounds like it would cause missed shifts, or at least a lot of foot fatigue.
It certainly does initially. It can take weeks of dedicated, awkward riding to retrain your muscle memory and stretch your tendons to accommodate that new, unnatural ankle angle. They absolutely solve the problem of reaching the ground, but they introduce a significant new ergonomic challenge to operating the vehicle.
So is there a better, or at least a cheaper and less drastic way to solve the height issue?
Very often, yes. If a rider only needs a slight boost, say half an inch to an inch to comfortably flatfoot the bike, a much more economical and ergonomically sound solution is a simple, high-quality gel heel insert.
Oh, interesting.
A $15 soft sole gel insert dropped into a standard well-fitting riding boot can often provide just enough extra reach. Crucially, it achieves this without drastically altering the external profile of the boot, and it requires a minimal adjustment period for your shifting muscle memory.
Okay, so you've measured your feet, you've picked the right style with the proper hinges, you've chosen durable leather, and you bought the boots. They arrive in the mail, you pull them out of the box, put them on, and, well, they feel terrible. They're stiff as wooden boards. Walking feels awful.
A very common experience with new gear.
Which brings us to the final hurdle, the break-in process. How do we break in these heavy leather boots without suffering through 2 weeks of blisters?
First, we must aggressively address what not to do. The internet is full of shortcuts and life hacks for breaking in heavy leather quickly. These usually involve putting the boots in the oven, blasting them with a high-heat hairdryer, or soaking them in boiling water.
Wait, please tell me people don't actually put their brand new $300 leather boots in the kitchen oven.
They do, constantly, and it is chemically disastrous for the footwear. Leather is organic skin. Extreme artificial heat rapidly abstracts the natural oils and denatures the proteins within the collagen fibers.
You're just cooking the leather.
Exactly. It will cause the leather to dry out, shrink, and crack prematurely, effectively destroying the boot's structural integrity and longevity before you've even ridden a single mile in them.
Okay, no ovens. So what is the strict, expert-approved guide to breaking them in properly?
It requires patience and mechanical action. First, put on a pair of very thick wool hiking socks. Put the new boots on, lace or buckle them up securely, and simply wear them around your house.
Just walk around.
Do this for 20 to 30 minutes a day for about a week. While you are sitting on the couch or at your desk, actively flex your ankles back and forth. You are using your natural body heat and gentle mechanical movement to slowly stretch the leather fibers at the natural flex points of your specific foot.
And you mentioned in your notes conditioning the leather right away, even though they're brand new.
Yes. Apply a high-quality leather conditioner like Lexol or Bic 4 during this process. Focus specifically on massaging the conditioner into the stiffest areas, the heel counter, the toe box, and the ankle flex points.
What does that do?
This lubricates the internal fibers of the leather, allowing them to stretch and conform to your foot much more easily and preventing premature cracking.
So what does this all mean for you, the rider? It means patience is a virtue. 5 days of walking around your living room looking slightly ridiculous in thick socks and heavy boots prevents a miserable, painful 200-mile ride with severely blistered heels. The break-in happens at home, not on the side of the highway.
Precisely. You want the boot to be a comfortable, familiar extension of your body by the time you are operating a heavy, fast-moving motorcycle in them.
Wow. We have covered some serious vital ground today. We've gone from exposing the hidden, sometimes gruesome dangers of trusting standard steel-toe work boots and laces to cracking the intricate code on the EN 13634 safety standard.
We really unpacked the numbers there.
We did. We revealed the grueling mechanical truth behind those waterproof ratings. We exposed the blind spot of torsional twisting that even laboratory CE testing misses. And we mapped out exactly how to spend your money wisely on the right leather fit and structural style for your specific ride.
If we pull back and connect all of this to the bigger picture, it becomes abundantly clear that foot protection on a motorcycle is not just about buying a thick shoe. It is a comprehensive, interdependent system.
A system, exactly.
It requires the right materials to survive thermal abrasion, the right laboratory testing to guarantee crush limits, mechanical architecture to prevent twisting, and most importantly, the rider's honest, educated assessment of their own risk tolerance and riding environment.
It's all about making absolutely sure that the drawbridge is pulled up, locked, and reinforced before the siege begins. I want to leave you, our listener, with one last thing to ponder as we wrap up this deep dive.
Let's hear it.
We spent a lot of time today talking about how the current CE standards don't thoroughly test for ankle torsion, and how bulky, hinged plastic exoskeletons are currently our best defense against it. But look at the rapid evolution of the rest of motorcycle gear. Airbag technology is currently revolutionizing jackets and vests, right?
Oh, absolutely. They use accelerometers and gyroscopes to deploy in milliseconds.
Exactly, to protect the collarbones, ribs, and spine. So how long will it be until we see micro-airbag technology integrated directly into our footwear?
That is a fascinating concept.
Imagine a sleek, incredibly comfortable boot that feels and walks exactly like a casual sneaker. But in the millisecond, a crash is detected by onboard sensors. Micro-airbags instantly inflate to rigidly lock the ankle in place, completely eliminating torsion, acting as an exoskeleton only during the crash and then deflating. As you lace, zip, or ratchet up your boots for your next ride, look down at your feet and ask yourself, is your footwear stuck relying on the static, heavy tech of the past, or is it truly ready to handle the dynamic physics of the future?